Now, one of our hostesses will demonstrate her perfect bowling form. She steps up, she wiggles her fanny, and perfect form, lovely form. This could be a strike, it could be a strike. Oh, no, it looks like it's going to be a cut ahead. Well, thank you, fat boy. It's been a pleasure having you on the show.
If we can learn one thing from this movie, it's that you cannot, under any circumstance, go bowling with a severed head. It just won't work. A trio of scream queens team up to pay homage to monster movies before them. We're still up all night, and this episode, we watched Sorority Babes in the Slimeball Bowl-O-Rama.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to USA Up All Night with me, Rhonda.
Hi, I'm Gilbert Gottfried, the comedian in the cupboard, for USA Up All Night.
In this movie, you'll see two of your favorite stars. Now, if you drink enough beer, you'll start seeing more of your favorite stars.
Stay with me on USA Up All Night.
Welcome to Still Up All Night, the only podcast dedicated to the films of USA Up All Night. I'm Travis Yates, joined by my co-host Rob, Katie, and Rob. We're back after vacation because sometimes you just have to make time to watch more B movies. Rob, how are you?
I am well. Yourself?
I'm doing great. Now, unfortunately, since our last episode, we of course learned the unfortunate news that longtime Up All Night host Gilbert Gottfried passed away at the age of 67. Gilbert died after battling a heart disorder. Rob, thoughts on Gilbert Gottfried as we remember him fondly on the podcast?
No, just, a sad passing and I think an underappreciated comedic voice. He certainly, did all this sort of goofy side stuff for Up All Night, but truly was like a genuinely funny human being. In this character almost all the time, it's rare that you ever heard his natural voice. So yeah, just sad to see another one go like that.
Yeah, I was introduced to Gilbert Gottfried from, of course, USA Up All Night, and really grew to appreciate his comedy, as you referenced, just such a genuine character. As I got older, I really grew to appreciate his comedy.
Yeah.
Of course, my time with him, though, through USA Up All Night during my very formative years, just spending countless Friday nights with him as he distracted me from family problems and social problems. And for that, I forever remain grateful. The perfect host for such a beautifully quirky show that was USA Up All Night. Just a perfect matching. Rob, when Gilbert passed, his family posted this on social media. We are heartbroken to announce the passing of our beloved Gilbert Gottfried after a long illness. In addition to being the most iconic voice in comedy, Gilbert was a wonderful husband, brother, friend, and father to his two young children. Although today is a sad day for all of us, please keep laughing as loud as possible in Gilbert's honor. And that's exactly what we'll do with this episode of Still Up All Night, dedicated to Gilbert Gottfried. And oh boy, do we have a doozy this episode. It's Sorority Babes in the Slimeball Bowl-O-Rama. Rob, it's hard not to think of this movie without its leading ladies, Scream Queens, Linnea Quigley, Brink Stevens, and Michelle Bauer.
Here to that.
So let's dig into it. I mean, obviously, one of the most notable things about Sorority Babes at the Slimeball Bowl-O-Rama, besides the amazing name, is the ladies. So Rob, this is the first time that this trio of Quigley, Stevens, and Bauer appeared together in a movie. Now, we talked about Linnea Quigley in our Vice Academy episode. She's probably the most well-known of the three, with Brink Stevens a very close second. Stevens is a model, actress, and a fun fact about her, Rob, she has a master's degree in marine biology from the University of California.
Really?
Yeah, she was actually on her way to becoming a scientist with a doctorate in marine biology, but San Diego's Scripps Research Institute kicked her out of the program because she was secretly studying dolphins. So the school receives a lot of funding from the tuna industry, and the school told her that she had to study seals instead of dolphins. And when the school found out that she was continuing her studies of dolphins, the school booted her from the program.
That is a weirdly crazy story.
It is, and it comes from a fascinating Fangoria documentary on Stevens that we posted on our Twitter page. She also has a fascination with sci-fi pulp magazines. She discovered these as a kid. She was a member of the comic book club in college. She attended Comic-Con dressed as Vampirella when she was 19, and magazine editor Forey Ackerman was a judge at that Comic-Con, and the two struck up a friendship that eventually led to Stevens' first movie appearance. Now, she's gone on to make literally hundreds of low-budget movies, most of them horror.
You're still acting today.
Still at it. And then Michelle Bauer rounds out our Scream Queen trio here. Before becoming a B movie star, Bauer was a Penthouse magazine model and appeared in some adult films. She also appeared on the Playboy channel in the mid 80s, which led to her landing a role in the 1986 B horror movie The Tomb. And from there, she was off and running in that genre. In an interview to promote the 2011 documentary Screaming in High Heels, The Rise and Fall of the Scream Queen, the trio was asked why they thought the era of the Scream Queen ended, and Bauer joked, because we stopped working, which I just love that response. But also, but they also continue to be active in the movie business, so they really didn't stop working. But I loved her response there. And these three ladies did so much for women in the movie business, and they continue to be friends to this day. And like you said, they continue to work. So pretty cool.
Absolutely.
So Sorority Babes at the Slimeball Bowl-O-Rama was produced by Charles Band and his Urban Classics production company, and later released on video by Full Moon Entertainment. And Band is a veteran producer and director of horror films, including 1985's Ghoulies and 1986's Troll. And he's still at it today, most recently with the 8th film in the Evil Bong series. So no doubt we'll revisit a Charles Band production on this podcast. Have you seen any of the Evil Bong movies? There's like 8 of them.
I have not. I've been tempted because I think some of them are on Tubi, but I haven't made that dive. Although I want to say I've heard reasonably good things about a few of them.
Well, it sounds like no time like the present now to dive into that series. Okay, so Sorority Babes at the Slimeball Bowl-O-Rama. You just never get old saying that.
It definitely doesn't roll off the tongue.
It does not. It was shot on location in just 12 days in 1987 in 2 main locations: a mall in Carlsbad, California, specifically the Shops at Carlsbad for our listeners in California that want to add that to the Still Up All Night walking tour, and Eagle One Bowl. Rob, they had to film at night when the locations were closed, so we had some real guerrilla style filmmaking here.
Which, I mean, makes sense given the location.
Yeah, and the title for this movie was originally The Imp, and which we'll get into shortly. And according to Linnea Quigley, because the bowling alley is what they had access to film in, that influenced the name change to the rolls off the tongue Sorority Babes at the Slimeball Bowl-O-Rama. It was directed by longtime B-movie director David Duchovny. He got his start, like so many others, working as a production assistant for Roger Corman and New World Pictures.
There you go.
A company we're very familiar with on this show. He has some adult films under his name around this time, but his first feature film, Dream Maniac, came in 1986. It was produced by Charles Band. The following year, he'd team up with Band again to direct Creepazoids, starring Linnea Quigley.
And then, still working today, too, actively.
Yes. Yes. Here he is again in the 3rd consecutive year directing a feature, this time Sorority Babes in the Slimeball Bowl-O-Rama. he would finally break away from working with band with his next film, Lady Avenger. But Rob, just after that, he would reunite Quigley, Stevens, and Bauer for the unrated Nightmare Sisters. Have you seen Nightmare Sisters?
I have not. I'm not even sure I've heard of that one.
Yeah, 89, I believe, was when that one came out. And speaking of ratings, Sorority Babes in the Slimeball Bowl-O-Rama is somehow rated R, but it had to be by a cat's whisker because there's more than the typical gratuitous boob shots we're used to seeing in Up All Night films. I mean, Rob, this is full frontal nudity and some pretty explicit scenes.
Yeah,
Obviously,
extended scenes as well.
it had to be cut pretty heavily for airing on USA Up All Night, and I don't remember seeing the VHS copy of this, so it took me by surprise. What was your take on the way the movie really pushed the envelope when it came to sexuality?
Right there with you was, sort of, and as you said, anticipating sort of the normal, just quick shots, and then to see what unfolded here, particularly one scene, and the scene I'm talking about. I was genuinely surprised, but I guess given her background, it makes sense that she's comfortable, nude. So, but
Michelle Bauer, yeah,
Michelle Bauer, yeah, sorry, and Lisa is her character, and yeah, I like yourself was shocked a little bit in how much was shown.
This was almost like a Skinamax movie.
Yeah, very much so compared to what normally aired. Yeah.
So there's a trio of guys in the movie as well. We've got the nerdy Calvin, played by Andras Jones, the party boy Keith, who is John Stewart Wildman, and our big funny guy Jimmy, played by Hal Havens. So Jones is probably the best known of this group, and he's known as Rick from A Nightmare on Elm Street 4.
Dream Warriors, probably my favorite of the series, just because it's so fun, in terms of the idea behind it. But I couldn't place him at first. I was like, man, I know that guy from somewhere, and I had to look him up, and immediately recognized him then.
He also starred in a 2001 Seth Green horror movie, The Attic Expeditions. Are you familiar with that movie?
Oh, haven't heard of that either.
It's funny that Jones appeared on the Surfing Monkey podcast several years ago, and while running through his own movies, he was like, yeah, a bunch of other stuff too. Sorority Babes in the Slimeball Bowl-O-Rama was Jones' first ever film. In an interview with Tony Brown of Hochstatter.com, Jones said about the movie, "The hours were dreadful, the accommodations lackluster, and the general attitude of the production team was one of mercenary cynicism. But the cast was funny, gorgeous, and legendary, and I was making $50 a day to get chased around by zombies and eat free donuts. I was a happy boy."
That's a great quote.
Yes. He seems like a really cool dude. He's also a musician and author, and he hosts a live show and podcast called Radio 8 Ball. He's had guests like John C. Reilly, Weird Al Yankovic, and Patricia Arquette on the show. So you have to check it out.
Oh, definitely look into that.
So this was Hal Havens' first feature movie as well, after several one-off TV appearances, including Cheers and 21 Jump Street. Also in 1988, Havens appeared in the horror film Night of the Demons and in Witch Trap the following year. But he didn't do much in film afterwards, but he continues his TV appearances to this day, with his last one being a 2018 episode of HBO's Westworld. And I think he's appearing on an upcoming Apple TV project, but I'm not sure about the title. So he looks a lot different today. He's got long gray hair and a long beard, kind of an aging biker looking guy.
Was even in Parks and Rec in one episode.
Yeah. And then John Stewart Wildman went on to write and produce a few projects, but this was probably his shining moment in the movie industry. So whatever that is worth.
Whatever, yeah.
So finally, but not least, the leader of the sorority here is Babs, played by Robin Still. So the world was introduced to Still in 1982 when she starred as Val Bates in Slumber Party Massacre. Mm-hmm. So no doubt we'll cover that someday on the podcast. And
I hope to, yeah.
Yeah, and that movie also has Brink Stevens. So Still's story, though, is a sad one. She never caught on in this genre the way her contemporaries in this film did. And Sorority Babes would be her third to last film. Her last movie would be American Ninja 4 in 1990. And sadly, she committed suicide in 1996 at the age of 34.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, so
That's sad.
So that's about it for the cast. Sorority Babes and the Slimeball Bowl-O-Rama had a small theatrical release in January of 1988. I couldn't find any box office numbers on it. I imagine it was quite paltry. Rob, did you come across anything related to the box office?
Nope. I just as you came up with nothing. Scoured too. Tried. I thought harder than normal and nothing.
Yeah. The movie debuted on USA Up All Night on April 1st, 1989, and it would appear again as the third and final film later that night. It would air a total of a dozen times, the last time on February 21st, 1992. So in a little 3-year span there, a dozen times.
They crammed it in.
Yeah. And check it out, Rob. Linnea Quigley was actually a guest on Up All Night during a 1991 episode. We've got a little sound from her chat with Rhonda, so let's have a listen.
Hi everybody. Linnea and I are just chatting. Welcome back to USA Up All Night. We're in the middle of Sorority Babes and the Slimeball Bowl-O-Rama. What a title. What an epic. Well, this movie is really starting to get good. We've just met the Sorority Babes, and I can't wait to see the slime ball.
Wait till you see the slime ball. It's slimy. It's like the slimiest.
I'm the one that likes to be. You. Okay. Hi, everybody. Linnea and I were just playing. Welcome back to USA Up All Night. It's my doll, though, and I'm not giving it to you. I know you're my guest, but this is my bondage bear. Now, we're in the middle of Sorority Babes and the Slimeball Bowl-O-Rama, and I don't know about you, but I'm really anxious to see what happens next to Taffy, Lisa, and those nerdy guys. Aren't you anxious, Linnea?
No, I was there. I know what happens.
And Rob, like a great late night infomercial that might air after Up All Night, we can say, but wait, there's more. Because last year, the sequel, Sorority Babes and the Slimeball Bowl-O-Rama 2, was made. And it's directed by Brink Stevens, her directorial debut. And she also appears in the film, as does Michelle Bauer. And originally, David Duchovny was slated to direct, and Linnea Quigley was going to reprise her role as Spider. But when they both dropped out, Scream Queen Kelly Maroney joined as Spider's cousin and new sorority house mother, Auntie Snake. God, I love B movies. Rob, what did you think when you heard the news that the sequel to this was made and the clips and trailer that you've seen of the sequel?
I was stunned. I initially in doing the IMDb just to look at the cast and get some information, the first thing that popped up was the sequel, and I thought there was some sort of mistake made, and lo and behold, it's a real thing. And I watched that trailer, and it looks interesting. I think it's amazing to me that this many years later, a sequel gets thrown together, but I'm hoping to check it out at some point.
Even Taco, the official mascot of Still Up All Night, is excited. I can hear him in the background.
Yes.
Once you start talking about the sequel, he gets riled up. Stick around for more on the sequel after our movie discussion, because we've got a little treat for that related to that. But let's not get ahead of our bowling balls here, Rob, because we've got the original movie to break down first. So let's dig into this movie. Sorority Babes and the Slimeball Bowl-O-Rama. It opens on our three nerdy college guys in their dorm, Calvin, Jimmy, and Keith, that we talked about just a second ago. They're talking about the Pi Epsilon Delta sorority initiation, or as Keith calls it, the Felta Delta initiation. Got a little kick out of that. Keith says he knows the secret location of the initiation, which ultimately just ends up being at the sorority house. So.
Yeah, and he's got the perfect viewing spot, which, is just the window.
Oh, yeah. These three guys, they sneak over to the side of the house where they can peep through a window to see the initiation ceremony. which consists of two pledges in skimpy shirts and underwear bent over a couch being spanked with a paddle by the sorority leader, Babs. Our pledges here, Taffy and Lisa, are Brink Stevens and Michelle Bauer. And a couple of observations from this initiation ceremony, Rob. First, I got a kick out of Lisa and Taffy talking about how Tri Delta was the sorority to join at the school. Yet there's only like 5 members.
Yeah.
And they were only there for like a split second. And then there's just 2 of them pledging to join. So this is either a really small school or these girls have been lied to about the popularity of the sorority.
Well, I'm going with a really small school. We can't, diminish the sorority like that.
That's right. That's right. Second, the cinematography in this movie is way better than I expected it to be. There's a cool rack focus shot when the girls are getting paddled. It's a gratuitous close-up of their butts in the foreground with the guys peeping through the window in the background. And as they look on in excitement, the focus shifts from the girls' rears to the guys in the window. And I mean, this is a basic shot in cinematography, but it's something you don't normally see in B movies like this, simply because of a lack of planning, time, or talent. Your director of photography for Sorority Babes in the Slimeball Bowl-O-Rama is Stephen Ashley Blake, who made a nice living as a B movie cinematographer. Rob, it's still up all night. Test time.
Uh-oh.
All right, I got a question for you. What other movie covered on our podcast was Stephen Ashley Blake the cinematographer on?
Oh, I am absolutely clueless to this.
He must come as a package deal with Linnea Quigley because it was episode 4, Vice Academy.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. I think he showed a little more of his skills in this movie than that one.
He does. And whether it was budget or what have you, yeah, definitely. This looks a lot better than Vice Academy. So the peeping gets quite disturbing when the 3 guys break into the sorority house and peek into a bathroom while Lisa and Taffy are showering. Now, Rob, a staple of almost every Up All Night movie we cover is how wildly inappropriate the gags that are passed off as comedy come off today. I know we discussed this a lot in episode 6, Fraternity Vacation, but I mean, this scene of just a total invasion of privacy made me uncomfortable. What about you?
Yes, of course. But it also made me chuckle in that, just the whole shower arrangement, of course, there's no curtain. And the 3, fully grown men are outside this door, peeking through a crack and remain completely hidden, and no one, hears them fumbling around and, over the noise of the shower, I guess. And so, yeah, I got it. While simultaneously creeped out, the scene did make me laugh.
Yeah. So the peeping is more of an inappropriate gag here. It also serves as the movie's inciting event. So Babs catches these boys finally peeping from the hallway and says, as the final part of the initiation, the 2 pledges need to break into the local bowling alley and bring back a trophy and take the guys with them. So I was wondering during the exposition, like, how we were going to get to a bowling alley.
Yeah.
So there you go. But then I was also wondering, why a bowling alley?
Is it a mall?
And then, right, 2 things are revealed right after the pledges head off with the guys. Babs' father owns the mall, and the bowling alley is located in the mall. So, but then also we learn that Babs is a total masochist. So let's have a listen to her.
You've got more plan than you're letting on, Babs. I can see it all over your face. Honey, did you forget? Daddy owns the mall.
Oh, that's right to you.
We get it so easily. We'll watch our victims on the security cameras. And when they're not ready for it, we'll scare the shit out of them.
Babs, you're absolutely evil.
And if Lisa and Taffy don't come back with the trophy, which they won't if I can help it, I'll have to think of some other kind of, painful punishment.
So the gang gets into the bowling alley, and Calvin stumbles across a sexy little vixen who goes by the name of Spider, breaking into the bowling alley cash register. It's Linnea Quigley. And I love how off-putting she is towards this group. She asks, "What is this, the Midnight Wimp Bowling League?" And when she's introduced to Lisa and Taffy, she says, "Taffy, if you don't know what's wrong with Taffy, you deserve the name." So I got a real, just kind of an April Ludgate vibe from Parks and Rec from Quigley here, this whole movie, and I just love it. And Quigley is buff for this role, like almost Linda Hamilton in Terminator 2 buff.
It's funny you say that, because that stood out to me as well. I was like, man, her arms look really good.
Yeah, what were your thoughts overall with Linnea Quigley here as Spider?
Well, I just love the intro. Is it Calvin first walks in and she's trying to break into the cash register, and what does he say? Something like, "Do you come here often?"
Yeah, exactly.
So I just immediately there was charisma between the two of them. They had a good chemistry. Sorry, that's the word I was looking for.
Yeah, they did.
And that sort of, at least for me, carried the movie largely.
Yeah, from that point on, they'd pretty much be paired up the whole time. So that's good that they had some decent chemistry. Yeah, they were total opposites, and Calvin is just this super nerdy. Got drunk off of one beer at the beginning of the movie, and then of course Spider is just this dressed as kind of a biker, and just like I said, just everything she says is sarcastic with this just off-put.
And at every turn, she's pretty much a badass as well.
Yes, absolutely. So the gang eventually steals a trophy from the bowling alley. This trophy looked more like the Stanley Cup than a bowling trophy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's so true.
But there's a reason for that, because when Jimmy drops the trophy, the bottom breaks off and out pops Uncle Impy the Imp, a kind of jive-talking hybrid genie ghoul in one of just the strangest scenes that I can remember in a movie. The creature here is claymation, I think. He looks like a mix between a ghoulie and a purple troll, which is funny because
I thought he was a puppet.
Okay, I wasn't sure. I couldn't tell, but just the way the scenes were shot, it felt like claymation, like they were shooting in increments and then put it all together. And I could have been wrong. It's funny because the movie's producers made Ghoulies and the first Troll movie, so
that makes
like,
sense. Yeah,
combine those two creatures and create an imp. And the imp is voiced by Michael Sonnier. Rob, it is time again for Still Up All Night test time. I'm really putting the screws to you here today. You didn't know there were going to be all these pop quizzes or.
I think I'm prepared for this one though.
Okay, the question is, what other Still Up All Night film does Michael Sonnier appear in?
Surf Nazis Must Die.
All right, 1 for 2. He was Mengele. That's right, in Surf Nazis Must Die, episode 10. If you remember, Rob, I compared him to Michael McKean as a member of the evil Surf Nazi gangs. Interestingly enough, the imp is credited as being voiced by Dookie Flyswatter in the movie.
I'm glad you caught that too.
This is Michael Sonnier's alter ego or stage name, because he's also a musician and just does some wild stuff. So he's an interesting cat.
That's one heck of a name too, Dookie Flyswatter.
Yes, it is. Uncle Impy announces his presence by saying, "Old Uncle Impy is just a little bit cranky. No fun being locked up, especially in a bowling trophy." It's really weird the way they shot him, because he doesn't really move. He just kind of sits like sitting up on a video game in front of the screen, and his head and mouth move when he talks, his ears a little bit.
That's got to be a budgetary thing.
So much of this movie, I think there were so many, you could tell where the decisions were made to trim the budget. And,
well, particularly when they get to the kills,
yes.
they huge cuts were made there to save money.
Yes. And up until the very end, we only see Impy from like the neck up. So yeah, interesting the way that he was shot, and just it was kind of weird. Impy offers to grant wishes to whoever let him out, and of course the nerdy Calvin is the reasonable one here, and he warns against it, saying that the wishes could be used against them. Why are you going to trust this ghouly looking creature? But hey, Jimmy and Keith,
Sure.
of course, don't listen. Jimmy asks for gold, and then all of a sudden several gold bars appear behind them. And then Impy tells Keith he knows what he's wishing for in like the most crudest of ways. He says he bets he wants to have sex with Lisa. And when Keith agrees, Lisa suddenly appears wearing lingerie, and she's hot to trot with Keith, as one might say. Rob, again, another uncomfortable moment here as Lisa's about to go off and have sex with Keith, not because she wants to, but because some evil deity is making her.
Gotta hand it to Imp Magic, yeah.
Yes. So Taffy says that she always wanted to be prom queen in high school, and then boom, she's transformed into a tiara-clad prom queen dancing around the bowling alley. Then Spider, again, I can't emphasize how good Linnea Quigley is in this. She tells Impy to eat shit and then just leaves with Calvin. Impy then turns his attention to our sorority babes, Babs, and then Rhonda and Frankie, who were these other two sorority girls that came along. They've been watching all along from security cameras in the mall. Impy turns Rhonda into a zombie and Frankie into the Bride of Frankenstein. So,
which I thought were really odd choices for the movie in general.
Well, see, I thought it was a fun play on monster movies. I mean, we've got a zombie, we've got the Bride of Frankenstein, and her name was Frankie, so it was a play on her name.
No, I didn't put that together. I guess that makes a little more sense. But I just thought the whole time, like, man, that's just a really interesting choice to go with the Bride of Frankenstein.
Yeah.
But yeah, in connecting her name, a little better.
Impy's he's got a little bit more going on there between the weird ghouly ears than we know, as we'll discuss as we go on here. So Babs takes off running, and she can't escape because Impy has electrified the mall exits. So there you go. That's why they're all trapped.
And we also get introduced to the mall janitor who promptly gets trapped in his supply closet by the girls as they exit, one room and bump his door shut on him.
Yes.
He provides some fun comic relief later in the movie.
He does. We'll get to the janitor because that's excellent. Excellent character. So zombie Rhonda and Frankenstein Frankie try to kill Jimmy by, shoving his face into what I think was a ball cleaner. Is that what that was?
I had no idea. I guess maybe, because judging by his appearance after, that was all I could come up with too.
Came up with blood all over his face. So it looked like, because then the next time we see him, his head's gone. This is just fantastic. So we learn that zombie Rhonda has ripped off Jimmy's head and goes bowling with it while Impy narrates. It's just a hilarious scene. It was the opening sound clip that we used. It's a zombie bowling with a severed head, which awkwardly rolls down the lane and into the gutter, which Impy then calls a gutter head. It's a fantastic scene. And it's made clear what the movie is going for here. It's really good satire of the horror genre by way of a sexploitation film. So great stuff. I mean, it's not a spoof like Student Bodies. They don't go all in on it. It's more subtle. So,
and I'm a big fan of Impy. I was hoping to get more of him throughout the movie, but again, the budget rears its ugly head.
Yeah, he'll pop in and out every now and again, quip a one-liner, and then off to the action we go again. So I also love that as Frankie goes after Taffy and they struggle in the middle of the mall, the possessed Frankie tells Taffy, "You'll never be a Tri-Delta girl now." So, as she's in this possessed demonic state, she still references their sorority. I love it,
maintaining some of her old self.
Yeah. It's a bit like how George Romero sends his zombies to the mall out of just like reflex and muscle memory making a statement on modern capitalism. Here, even the undead still care about who gets into their sororities. I loved it. So the whole time we've been getting cutaways to this bathroom sex scene between Lisa
Oh
and
boy, yeah.
Keith. And this is, you referenced this earlier, where, I mean, Lisa just gets really aggressive with Keith. I mean, she strips down almost all the way. And then Keith all of a sudden grows a conscience and tries to stop her from ripping
Back
off
out
his
of it,
clothes. So he goes and tries to find some ice to calm her down, I guess. And he's just wandering around the kitchen, and he stops in front of an active fryer, just casually eats a fry. So you see this coming from a mile away, and Rhonda shows up, the zombie, and shoves his face into the fryer.
Yeah,
So
I
they're just-
don't know if you caught it during the quote unquote love scene, how red he started to get. And I have to assume, that the actor was either, I don't know if it's embarrassment or it just was blended some authenticity to the scene.
Yeah, this was the scene that belonged on late night Cinemax. This was a very surprising scene, the way how far they went with this. Michelle Bauer did reference this in saying, like, talking about how they all had their roles, and she was the sexy one of the group, sort of, and given her background with being in Penthouse and that sort of thing, it makes sense. So
Yeah,
but she was definitely willing to to do what she needed to for that scene. So, all right. So next, Rhonda and Frankie capture Taffy and rip her body in half, which is hilarious because her name is Taffy.
yes.
But then also, it's a very anticlimactic death for a main character here. We see Rhonda and Frankie kind of just pulling on opposite ends of her, and then we just get a cutaway to the next scene. And then, like, later at some point, we see half the body sticking out behind a wall, and so they reference the other parts of her is over here.
Yeah, I was so disappointed in that scene. I was really looking forward to how they were going to handle that, given the budgetary restraints. But it was in the, as you said, most anticlimactic way possible, where you just cut to a new scene and come back and show it's like the magician sawing someone in half. The split the box.
Yep.
You just. So yeah, I was disappointed in that one. Yeah. It did make me laugh though.
Yes. So we're down to Babs, Spider, Calvin, and Lisa. The imp corners Babs behind the bowling lanes, and then we get a full body shot here of him, and again, just kind of weird little ghoulish looking thing. He explains that he's a demon, and he turned Frankie and Rhonda into demons, but without the spell casting power. And then I don't know. The movie tries in showing his whole body and everything, but it's a clunky special effect at best. What'd you think of Impy here and the explanation of him as a demon and his powers and everything?
I enjoyed Impy himself. Yeah, it was, I'm with you that it was a rough looking, puppet, but I enjoyed his character and I thought, hey, with what we're dealing with, it's a serviceable explanation. I'll take it.
Yeah. He's like a childlike demon. I mean, he really enjoys what he's doing and having a lot of fun.
Finds the humor in all of it.
He does. Okay, so Babs shoves Rhonda onto a bowling lane after a brief struggle, and we get another great shot from Stephen Ashley Blake when Spider sees that Rhonda is trapped on the lane down by the pins. She grabs a bowling ball, and the camera glides along with her in a dolly shot as she rushes up and tosses the ball down the lane. And, like most of the deaths in this film, we don't actually see the ball smash into Rhonda's face. And, like we've referenced, the movie creatively hides most of the deaths. And Taffy being pulled apart, Jimmy being beheaded. I'm sure they saved a lot of money that would have gone to special effects had they shown all of those deaths, but instead they spent most of their production budget on just that, the film and audio production. I mean,
yeah,
the movie looks and sounds great, but the special effects are minimal and not all that impressive. Even, like, for example, as a zombie, Rhonda's face is turned kind of that green zombie look, but then the rest of her
it looks fine. And it's you can easily tell it's like just a few prosthetics, glued to her face.
Yeah. Okay, so Calvin and Spider find their way to the janitor's office, and then here is where we meet our janitor. He's unnamed. He's just the bumbling janitor here. He was a mall janitor that was locked in a closet earlier, as you referenced. This janitor is credited as C.D. LaFleur. It's actor George Flower, who is that guy who was in that thing, if there ever was one.
Absolutely.
I mean, he was the bum on the town square bench in Back to the Future. He appeared in several of John Carpenter's films, including They Live. He has just such a unique look and sound and has a lot of fun with his role here. What was your take on George Flower as the janitor?
And, initially I thought it was a little, it was just goofy, just how they played it off, with him sort of at every turn, sort of missing the kids that are sneaking around the mall and then getting stuck. And, but, at the one final scene near the end with him, with that whole interaction with Spider and Calvin, he just won me over in that scene where, he's, mishearing everything they're saying. I was rolling at that part, and I really appreciated him.
Yeah, mishearing and then like repeating what they said without hearing it. Yeah, it was fantastic. So when Calvin and Spider find him in the office, he also serves a pretty good narrative purpose because he tells the story of Dave McCabe, a short fella that sucked at bowling, as he described it, until one day he came into the bowling alley and started bowling perfect games. And everyone that laughed at him previously started dying terrible deaths. And when he was arrested for the deaths, McCabe said he used black magic and conjured up an imp to become a better bowler, and things got out of hand. And he tells them that McCabe said he used magic against itself to stuff the imp back into the bowling trophy, because when trapped in small spaces, they lose their power. So we get the whole backstory here of why the imp was in the bowling trophy to begin with, which, again, a little touch here that, most B movies wouldn't even take the time to do. It's just like, no, it's just,
it just is. Yeah,
every
just
bowling
happening.
Trophy might have an imp in it, right? So this whole thing started because Dave McCabe wanted to be a better bowler.
The classic tale of, wanting to be a better bowler.
That's right. All right, so Babs has now been transformed into an evil biker-looking babe. It reminded me of when Sandra Dee shows up in all black leather at the end of Grease.
Oh, yes, yeah.
She's got this big wig with really blonde hair. She shows up in the bathroom and paddles Lisa to death with a steel-studded board. A nice callback to the earlier spankings with the wooden tri-delta painted
which
board.
We didn't touch on earlier, spankings that went on like way too long. They like just played the sound effect every time they cut to the guys. And it was like, if that were a real thing, those girls wouldn't be walking for weeks.
Right. So we are working our way to the climax. It's Frankie, Babs, and the imp against Spider and Calvin. Spider finds some gasoline, and they decide to use Molotov cocktails to defeat the demon. Babs shows up and attacks them, and Calvin tosses the lit cocktail at Babs. Even though it was like a beer bottle sized, 12-ounce bottle, Babs goes up in flames like one of those videos of a frozen turkey being thrown into a grease fryer, or like a dry Christmas tree lit on fire, and then the house
just
immediately
instantaneous.
This was an awkward scene, a bit overdone. What'd you think of Babs, but also hilarious? What'd you think of Babs' fiery death?
Oh, well, I mean, you can see where a chunk of the budget went as well. Just they saved up for, making her death the most, special effects laden.
Instead of lighting a prop and then just stay lingering on it for a quick second. I mean, they
hang out,
man lit on fire, lumbering around for a good 7-10 seconds. It was it was impressive. So Frankie kills our old janitor off screen. We don't even get to see his death again, just like all the others. And then Spider chops off Frankie's head, sending it flying into the exit door, which springs them open. So Spider points out, hey, they used magic against magic. So a nice touch there.
Although it was a little underwhelming. I thought in some way that would be how they would defeat the imp, as opposed to how they would get out of the mall.
Yeah. So Calvin then runs out of the open doors to get the car. But wait, Zombie Rhonda's in the back seat, to which Impy jokes, monster in the back seat, oldest trick in the book.
That one got me too. I cracked up because when she first pops up, I was like, of course she's in the back seat. And then he cued that in.
Yeah. So while the imp watches Rhonda choking Calvin, Spider sneaks up behind the imp and shoves him into a container that she grabbed from the janitor's office. Calvin crashes the car in another expensive-looking stunt here. The car goes flying over in the mall parking lot, so finally killing Rhonda. But being the goody-goody that he is, Calvin still took the time to put his seatbelt on in the midst of running from demons. So that saved his life. He survived that car crash. Spider rushes to his aid, pulls him out of the car, and as the sun rises, Spider convinces Calvin to leave the scene, telling him they're going back to her place, presumably to make him a man. So he gets on the back of her Yamaha, and off they go as the camera pans over to the container that they just left sitting outside the mall, with Impy inside complaining, and he ends with, hey, you in the front row, you want a wish? Which is hilarious, and also hilarious because this only had a couple week run in the theaters, if
best. Yeah.
So Rob, what did you think of our somewhat quick third act here of Sorority Babes in the Slimeball Bowl-O-Rama?
Yeah, it was too quick for me. I was looking for a little more imp related, as I said, sort of turning his magic against him. But as we've hit on multiple times, I'm sure budgetary constraints had a lot to do with that.
Yeah, more imp. Definitely, we could have.
But I did enjoy breaking the fourth wall at the end, and just his character in general was very fun.
Yes, yeah. All right. So you now know what we think, but what do others think of this movie? Rob, we've got a bona fide cult classic here. So I was surprised that it didn't have a tomato meter score on Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh, it didn't?
It doesn't. Now, I mean, critics, they often,
yeah,
raise their nose to movies like this. But even, I thought maybe with this one being as well known as it is, I thought it might have some, but it didn't. But it does have more than 1,000 audience ratings.
Oh, wow.
So, Rob, from 1 to 100, what do you think the audience score for Sorority Babes in the Slimeball Bowl-O-Rama is on Rotten Tomatoes?
1 to 100, I'm going to go 72.
So this is perhaps for me the most shocking of all of our Rotten Tomatoes scores that we've given on this podcast thus far. Rob, it came in at 37%.
What?
I know.
Wow. I assumed, because of the cult status, it would come in way more on the positive side than that.
Now, I poured through a lot of the reviews here, and a lot of times I'm not sure that people understand quite how the ratings should work, because they'll give it 1 star, but then they'll write something nice about it. So I it's like if it's so bad it's good, give it a good rating.
Yeah.
But they're saying it's so bad it's good, and then they're giving it a bad rating. So I think that's playing in. So it's almost as if the 37% is a good thing, I suppose, in terms of the way that people are misreading how to rate these B movies. So anyway,
I gotcha.
So let's dig into a couple of the reviews here. So Rick M gives it 3.5 stars and writes, really bad in so many ways. So he knows, though, he gave it 3.5 stars, so he understands so bad it's good. So good for you, Rick M.
Exactly.
He says so bad or bad in so many ways. 80s horror movie, 80s horror B movie, but just so darn entertaining and enjoyable at the same time. This isn't going to win any awards for the plot or effects, but when you have Linnea Quigley, Michelle Bauer, and Brink Stevens all in one movie battling a wish-giving imp at night in a bowling alley, you can't go too far wrong. Great fun. So there you go. I mean, that's perfect right there, Rick M.
Absolutely.
Glenn S. gives it just 2 stars and writes, LOL, watched this one in college. Wow, too goofy to be erotic or scary. Uncle Impy is about as terrifying as the alien from Mac and Me. So I liked that.
Call out to Mac and me too.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
always
So,
appreciate that.
right. And then we'll end it up here with super reviewer Michael M. He gets us. He also gives the movie 3.5 stars and writes, a back of the shelf VHS rental, if there ever was one. What starts as a sleazy sex comedy turns into a sleazy horror comedy that never forgets its audience or its sense of fun. It's gross and dirty and morally questionable, but that's the fun of this brand. What I didn't like was how often it shied away from the violence. Probably a ratings board thing, but when you tease someone in a human tug of war, you better show the results. It's not a great movie. It's not really even a good movie, but it is a fun movie. So, Michael, we've already addressed your complaint, and I agree, especially on like Taffy's pull apart death
Yep.
occurring off screen. You got to show that somehow. And as we said, I think most of those decisions were made for budget purposes. Um, and any movie showing just top to bottom full frontal nudity, I don't think this was a ratings issue,
Yeah,
but rather
exactly.
cost of resources and where they decided to put their money.
Because I want to say I read that the budget was less than $100,000.
Yeah, I didn't find anything on the budget either. So, but that wouldn't surprise me either. Yeah.
And we can always say too that this film paved the way for the Wishmaster movie series.
There you go. Absolutely. And we finally logged what is probably the best titled film from Up All Night, right? At least a tie with Surf Nazis Must Die regarding the films that we've covered. So, Rob, do you think it's worth staying up all night for?
I think this one is very mood dependent, or maybe not mood, but what are you looking for? If you're looking for that sort of classic Up All Night, hey, I want some gratuitous nudity, this checks that box, across the board for that. As a sort of horror aspect, it fails there, but it does get the comedy right, I feel. So I'm on the camp of yes, it's worth staying up for.
And I think the name gives it away that we're looking at more comedy than horror.
Oh, true. But there's always that balance, and as we
Yes.
said, due to the budget, we feel like it fell short in that department.
Yeah.
With the cutaways and sort of lame effects.
Come for the horror, stay for the comedy, I think would have been a good tagline
Yeah.
for this. Yeah, I absolutely do also think this is worth staying up all night for a couple of reasons. It is super campy. It's a lot of fun. It's a bit cringy at times, as all of our films typically are. But I'm also looking at this movie's potential and what I think was intended but didn't quite shine through. I mean, this is a satire and an homage of sorts to horror films and creature features. And with a bigger budget, I think that this could have been to horror films what like Tim Burton's Mars Attacks was for the sci-fi genre, right? I mean,
Oh wow, yeah, that's a bold statement, but I think you're onto something with that.
the actors were having so much fun playing these characters just over the top, from George Flower as the humorous janitor. Carla Barron played Frankie, and just, her shouting, "You'll never be a Tri-Delta girl."
Yeah.
And then just the sarcastic Linnea Quigley that predates the Aubrey Plaza style roles. They had fun. I had fun watching it. If you, watch it expecting satire, I think you'll have fun too. And the writing is just so surprisingly tight for a low budget film. I mean, things like things we referenced already, but like the character named Frankie being turned into the Bride of Frankenstein, callbacks to previous elements, like, using the head of one of the monsters to use magic against magic to break Impy's spell. in most of our movies, so many things are just introduced and then forgotten.
Yeah, fall to the wayside, and they're definitely more thought went into this than some of the others we've covered.
Yeah, but for a film featuring a demonic imp, the movie remains cohesive and I won't say sensical, but the characters stay true to their motivations, all things considered. And then, it was good and close to being great had they had more resources, but they definitely did the best they could and for what they were working with. So,
yeah.
All right, that is going to do it for this episode of Still Up All Night and Sorority Babes in the Slimeball Bowl-O-Rama. Rob, any final thoughts before we put a bow on this one?
Like I said, it wasn't as good as I was hoping it was going to be, but I still, I had fun with this, and there are a lot of, little moments in it that make it a worthwhile watch.
I'm the opposite end of the spectrum where it actually was better than I expected, and I don't remember. We didn't ask this. I don't remember seeing this one on Up All Night.
I don't either.
Super busy in that 3-year span somehow that I missed all 12 showings. I'm sure I did, and just don't remember it. There were so many, so I'm sure a lot of times we've seen these and just don't remember it. Although I feel like whatever.
Yeah, I feel like with Linnea Quigley, I would tune in if I knew she was in a movie back then.
Yeah. So anyway, kind of fresh eyes for both of us, but for me, it was better than I expected. So I was pleasantly surprised. So definitely check it out. If you have a film that you remember watching on USA Up All Night that you'd like us to dive into, let us know. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter at Still Up Podcast. And remember, please, the next time you see a bowling trophy that's big enough to fit an imp inside it, don't open it. All right, we'll leave you with the trailer to the just-released Sorority Babes in the Slimeball Bowl-O-Rama 2. It's available now on the Full Moon Features website, fullmoonfeatures.com. Enjoy.
No man shall ever fulfill the needs of a sister. No man shall ever fill the void of a sister.
Welcome to Pi Epsilon Delta.
The house has a curse on it.
Here we go again.
One pledge night, your sister Spider accidentally unleashed something evil.
These chicks are full-on free spirits. Whoa.
The three of you are gonna drive us somewhere.
You kicking in for gas?
It's just a little debauchery in the bowling alley.
The bowling alley?
You all know the sordid history of the Pi Epsilon Delta sorority. Your task is the very same one given to those sisters all those years ago. Steal the trophy, and with it, bring back glory to the Pi Epsilon Delta sorority. Yes!
First, we have some fun. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we bowl!
Whatever it was that was released caused a night of terror.
Found it!
What?
The hell is that?
Sultan Almighty, I'm free at last. Ha ha!
I want to be a famous rapper.
Your wish is granted. The man of your dreams is just behind that door.
I'm not playing your game.
Don't leave now, you'll miss all the fun. You are all so mine. So mine. Choose your words wisely.
I can smell